us. That is coming up in 25 minutes from now. And we also have Brent Hubbs on today's show in about an hour or so. And I bring up Hubbs from VolQuest because there is news on the Hill the day after SEC Media Days. I don't find any coincidence with this whatsoever. You want an example of a Friday news dump? Here it is. Adam Sparks from the Tennessean, Knoxville News Sentinel, says that Tennessee received a notice of allegations detailing 18 NCAA violations and $60,000 of cash and gifts given to football recruits and players by Jeremy Pruitt, his wife, numerous coaches, staff, and a booster. This is stemming from the entire investigation that has gone on way too long from the NCAA, and now we're finally seeing the notice of allegations come forward on Pruitt and the university. I will say it's a 52-page document, which is why I'm previewing our visit with Brent, because I'm going to rely on him to read through this during our show. But the NCAA, in response to the way Tennessee handled the investigation, Paul, this is the key. The actions taken by the institution during the investigation should be the standard for any institutional inquiries into potential violations. So, last year at this time, we had Hubbs on, and we were asking, when will they reach $1 million in trying to figure out this investigation? And I think they were up around 750,000 around this time last year, and they surpassed the $1 million mark on how much they spent on this. Point being, nothing's going to happen from the Tennessee perspective based on just this notice of allegations because of that statement from the NCAA.
Just makes me circle back to what a dumb hire this was. A guy who was doing shady stuff and couldn't coach.
Well, he had never been a head coach except for the high school level when they hired him.
Dumb.
Yeah.
That's on Phil Fulmer.
Also, $60,000, that's it? Think about the money we've been discussing in NIL. I mean, $60,000 doesn't even make a headline for NIL.
Right.
And for that to be the notice of allegations, I'm surprised. I was expecting more, quite frankly, given the fact that we hear hundreds of thousands of dollars, not just with Tennessee, but across the country in regards to recruiting right now.
But a number's a number, and he's giving out stuff he can't give out.
I agree.
He's so dumb at it that he's doing only $60,000.
Right. Yeah.
If you're going to do it, do it.
Go big, right?
Right.
Go big or go home. Bruce Feldman retweets and says, hefty charges by the NCAA against Tennessee, saying Jeremy Pruitt and his staff gave players cash and gifts throughout his tenure, starting in 2018. And then Feldman goes a bit deeper because he's reading through this report. His wife, Casey, paid more than $15,000 in rent and car payments for a Tennessee player and his mother over 2.5 years. So we'll have Brent Hubbs from VolQuest on. You can read the full recap of the 52-page report right now at OutKick.com through Trey Wallace, who has that story at OutKick for you. Paul, I thought of you last night because I saw the headline at OutKick about a report or a conversation. A report may be a bit strong. A conversation they were having about Shohei Ohtani and the possibility he could be traded at the deadline. The override
August 2nd. So
August 2nd's the deadline.
Yeah, 2 weeks from Tuesday.
The Braves are mentioned as the landing spot in this discussion. But Gary Sheffield Jr. had the story, and he said it makes more sense if you're the Angels to trade him in the offseason than it does right now, because, and I agree with him. If you think of trade deadline deals, would there be a bigger trade in the history of the trade deadline than this guy?
Well, I mean, it's hard for anything to be bigger than him because he's two-way player. So he's going to come in and help you, help your staff and help your lineup.
But think about brand, Get him off that lineup. That's where I'm going with this. Get him out of there. Get him somewhere to the east or to the Dodgers. It's got to be and the Dodgers were mentioned because the All-Star game, and he had made some comments. But the East Coast too, and this guy is a megastar. He should be already. We certainly know he is in Japan. Get him on the East Coast and push this guy to the moon.
Part of it is, and he answered the question very delicately and said, all it takes is one of the right kind of wins to turn us around and get us going. He chose the Angels on purpose because it's low profile. So is he willing to take on high profile now?
The Dodgers were interested, I believe, right?
I think everybody was interested. Everybody should have been interested.
How could you not be? Yeah, you're right. The SEC word count. Who said the most at the podium this past week? We'll tell you that. Plus, we'll talk with an Auburn tight end next. Just like that, the second hour is here. Glad you're with us. OutKick 360 rolls on from Nashville, Music City. 6th and Peabody, our location, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Fast-paced hour. Brent Hubbs joins us in an hour. Jason McCourty will be on the show today. That is in 20 minutes. Congressman Jim Jordan's in town. He's going to swing by in about an hour and a half in studio with us. Plenty to discuss on the Tennessee front, the SEC front, and more. Auburn tight end John Samuel Shenker will join us. Recently married as of last week, and setting school records at the tight end position for receptions. And he'll be with us coming up in 6 minutes or so. SEC, overwhelmingly, the media voted Alabama and Georgia to represent the East and the West. It was Kentucky edging out Tennessee for the second-best team in the SEC East. A&M got the nod in the SEC West, and based on the votes, they get the nod for the predicted who's the third-best team in the SEC. The media went with Texas A&M over Kentucky based on the second-place finishing votes there. Overwhelmingly, by the way, media picks Alabama to win the SEC championship, and the media has correctly predicted the SEC champion the last 2 years, and they normally do a pretty good job whenever they just go with Alabama on representation overall. SEC word count. Davey Hudson sent this to us last night, Paul, it was a clever tweet placed there by one of the media members there on site who decided to, through his transcript, put Alan Cole is his name, put out coaches and the number of words spoken at the podium prior to taking questions. Clark Lee with 2,340 words. That's the top. Okay, that's the cream of the crop here. Mike Leach at the very bottom. He has him listed with 7 words spoken. The transcript, the official transcript from the SEC, has Mike Leach speaking 5 words prior to taking questions, where he walked to the podium after the introduction by Commissioner Greg Sankey and said, "I appreciate that. Any questions?" Please put the graphic back up. We reference the full list here.
Lane Kiffin surprisingly low at 219.
Look,
second to last.
The guys I think that we would anticipate hearing from the most did not speak very much
Brian
in the
Kelly
initial.
also third.
Yeah, in the initial statement, you can tell the coaches that get up there and wing it versus the guys who come with a prepared statement. And the guys who get up there and wing it are the talkers. Jimbo Fisher. Brian Kelly got up there and he gave a very nice speech, 343 words, and then took a ton of questions about coming to the SEC from Notre Dame.
Scroll back to the top.
There is Lane Kiffin with 219 words. You're right. That's a big takeaway. Many of the coaches are in the thousands. Kirby
Sam Pittman,
Smart,
I would have expected to be brief, and he's 4th.
Saban, Stoops, Drinkwitz, all in the 1,100 to 1,400 word count. And the prepared statements by Clark Lee and Shane Beamer took a while. They were lengthy, well thought out, well planned, and Lee had talking points, so did Beamer, and they hit them all with 2,340 words and 2,185 words.
Lee also has the smallest audience there.
Well, they were the entire room down there was packed. They cycle through all those coaches, and then they bring the players down there for the print and electronic media.
But you think everybody in that room is paying rapt attention to Clark Lee?
Well, not in the same way that they are, Saban and others. But, Clark Lee, if he wants to get a message out there, he can't wait on a question to be asked for to get his message out there. So I think that's why he shows up with the prepared statement, to make sure he hits the points he wants to hit on, and then take the questions necessary. And he knows what he's going to be asked. What's it like this year compared to last year, and coming off the winless SEC season, only winning 2 games, and no one's predicting you to go very far? Those are the type of questions he's getting. Meanwhile, at the bottom of Mike Leach shows up and says, "Hit me with any and everything you want, because this is your time, not mine." So two varying
different styles.
Points there. Yeah, Josh Heupel, by the way, a little over 1,100 words with his message, and then he took a ton of questions on expectations and hype and everything in between. We had a great conversation with Hendon Hooker yesterday. If you missed that, you can go to the website OutKick.com. Plus, check out the YouTube page. Just search out OutKick 360. Roethlisberger continues to talk about the Steelers not wanting him, not just last year, but previously. It's very interesting.
And you never hear about Steelers being a split decision.
No, but
he's making it sound like it's Art Rooney.
And this was a couple months after he retired when we first heard and I said, man, this sounds like a guy who, if you called him up in December based on an injury, who knows if he decides to come out of retirement, like you did Drew Brees in New Orleans last minute when they're on their fourth guy.
He basically said Kevin Colbert and Mike Tomlin were fine moving on before last year, which quite frankly probably would have been the right decision.
Yep.
Though Pittsburgh got into the playoffs, right?
Yep.
One and done.
Yeah,
they were the worst team
last year. But the year prior that he's talking about, they won 12 games.
Well, he's not talking. He's saying they wanted him done last year.
No,
so they would have moved on last year.
No, he's saying they wanted him done before 2021. That was the season that they won 12 games. And then they brought him back last year for the Swan Song season, for the 21 season.
That's not the way I read it. I read it that they wanted him done last year and that Art Rooney wanted him back for one more year.
We're saying the same thing, but I'm saying he's discussing coming off of the 12-win season before they kicked off last season.
Yeah.
They wanted him out. And
Which
instead
they
brought him back for last year where they didn't do anything as they limped into the playoffs.
Well, I think Colbert and Colbert, I was going to call him, Colbert and Tomlin had a sense of what was coming, and they knew that his arm was shot, his body was shot, and he wasn't very good last year, and so more power to them. Forecasting forward, Art Rooney was being a little bit sentimental.
Jason McCourty joins us in roughly 20 minutes. Looking forward to that conversation. But right now, a great conversation that we had yesterday. Auburn tight end John Samuel Shenker. OutKick 360 continues across the OutKick network. Glad you're with us this afternoon. And our coverage continues in Atlanta at SEC Media Days, where Texas A&M and Tennessee are roaming the College Football Hall of Fame, as well as the Auburn Tigers. And tight end John Samuel Shenker, he joins us on Radio Row. John Samuel, thank you for the time. I want to talk some ball in a moment, but congratulations are in order. Recently married. Congrats, man.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm a week and a half fresh here. Just got back from my honeymoon this past Saturday, so this is my first week back from wedding stuff. But it was awesome, beautiful day. Wife's very happy, so it's all good.
Where did you honeymoon?
St. Lucia, down in the Caribbean. It was awesome.
That does not suck. It doesn't sound like
it did not. It was awesome.
How did the wedding go? How much say did you have over the wedding?
Very little. I did have a few requests, but they were very small, like walking my mother down the aisle before the wedding, but very small things. And then I let them take care of all that. I did the engagement, but you got it after that. So
I don't know if you agree that the toughest part for me was the guest list. Because my wife had a very large guest list, and we had a capacity we had to reach. And then I was trying to figure out who I definitely had to invite versus who I wasn't, married to, so to speak, with the invites. And the guy is always the guy who's, in the relationship that's got to deliver the bad news or whatever it might be.
Yes, that was probably one of the hardest parts of the whole wedding was because it was a pretty big wedding, and you're going to forget a few, and you're going to get like 2 months out, and you're like, dang, I did not invite that person. But there's nothing you can do. I mean, there's so many people that you have to, think about, but we finally got it done and got to the wedding day, so it was great.
Well, especially for you, you've got an entire locker room to consider. So, I mean, that part's tough. By the way, I do want to talk some ball, and you set the Auburn tight end record last year for receptions and receiving yards. So you've got big expectations going into 2022, don't you?
I do. And, last year it wasn't a fluke in my mind. Like, that was what I prepared for so long. And to see that come to fruition was really awesome. But now it's about growth and getting better in the little things now that I've gotten used to certain things. Now I can focus on very, very small things and to make my game better, whether that's separation or certain routes and the footwork on certain things. But that's been my focus this off season, and with all the other tight ends, we have a great room this year. And so that's really been our focus because we have a lot of guys that played a lot of minutes.
Auburn's John Samuel Shenker joins us on OutKick 360. You're a very good baseball player. Played for Team USA as the developmental group for the under-17 team. You played at Auburn, of course, as well. How difficult was it to give baseball up?
Very hard. That was my first love, was baseball. I played T-ball when I was 3. And to see that come through, and I committed actually to Auburn for baseball first.
Okay.
In the summer of my junior year. And then after my junior year, I really wanted to pursue football. So I told my family, and I called Coach Thompson, and I said, I'm sorry, but my heart's pulling me towards football. It's nothing against, Auburn or anything. And he was very understanding of that. And I had no offers at the time, actually, for football. None, not one, because I didn't pursue it at all. And I ended up getting my first offer. I think it was Georgia Southern, like my second week of the summer going into the senior year. And then it kind of unfolded from there.
And then awesome. solely on football now. So is it based on NFL aspirations or something else?
It was just, I wasn't getting my full potential in either. And it was awesome, but I wanted to reach the best that I could in at least one. And I thought football was that. I thought I had more untapped potential in football than I did baseball, because I played baseball for so long and so many years and games that I feel like I'd found my peak there. I feel like I hadn't found that in football yet. And that was part of my reasoning. And I knew that it needed to happen at some point. So that was my decision making.
Coach Harsin said this morning that the inquiry back in February had united the team. Is that accurate? And if so, how so?
Oh, 100%. I think that conversation itself changed the entire environment of Auburn football. Sorry, Derek Hall is waving at me while you're walking by. But it was such an odd situation to be in as a player, because you want it, but you got to fight for what you want, right? And we, as leaders, we wanted Coach Harsin here, and we wanted him to be our head coach. So we did whatever was possible to make sure he stayed here. And after that, it's like everything clicked. The culture clicked, the guys bought in, and ever since then, it's just been fun. Guys are enjoying ball. They're enjoying going to practice. And I think when you have that, you can really create some special things.
What's Calzada been like, getting to meet him and know him?
He is a wonderful football mind. Great mind to pick on the game. And he's got some experience, right? He beat Alabama last year. And he's played a lot of football. He beat us. So to have a guy like that, even TJ, who played a year, like, there's experience there. It's not like these guys are coming from places where they didn't play. And so I think it's a very unique opportunity that we have to have those two guys, and Robbie Ashford for that matter, from Oregon, all competing. But Calzada's done great. He was a little banged up in the spring from his surgery, but now he's back and he's getting ready for fall camp.
That Bama game, the Iron Bowl, still eat at you?
Yes, but what a experience to be a part of. That was 4 overtime Iron Bowl. I know we didn't win, and that it will tear me apart for a long, long time. But to just be a part of that and say, yeah, I was a part of that Iron Bowl game. That'll be talked about forever. And just the opportunity that we had. We could have, that would have dismantled their season.
Yes.
And so we were just so close. It's unbelievable how close we were to beating them, even in regulation. So, what an experience. But yes, that will eat at me for a long time.
Tight end from Auburn is John Samuel Shenker. He's been our guest here. Best of luck. Stay healthy, first and foremost. That goes without saying. But 5 straight home games on the schedule too at Jordan Air. So that's great. Plus, I know you get the rematch against Bam every year. This time in Tuscaloosa in your final season. That's got to be cool.
It's gonna be awesome. The 5 games at home. I've never seen that.
That's crazy.
Crazy. But we are very excited about it. That is such an advantage for us, we think, when guys come to our place. So we know we don't look too far ahead. Obviously, you want to keep it 1 week and one game at a time, and Mercer's our first opponent. But to just have that opportunity, I mean, to take it full advantage of that would be so amazing for Auburn, and that would put us in a great spot heading into our first road game, which is in Athens, which would be a massive game.
And that includes Penn State, that stretch, right?
Yes, Penn State home, which is a big one for us. After last year, that's going to be a big one for us.
Looking forward to the season, man. Can't wait for this to kick off in a little over a month. I know you feel the same. Thank you for the time, and hopefully we'll catch up down the road.
Yes, thank you. War Eagle.
There's John Samuel Shenker. It's been our guest on Radio Row, and still a lot more coming from Atlanta as our coverage continues with OutKick 360 and OutKick.com. 13-year NFL career, and he's not done with the NFL anytime soon. We've got details on that as we continue on OutKick 360. Across the OutKick network, Paul Koharski and Jonathan Hutton with you. Chad will be back with us on Monday. Pleased to be joined by Jason McCourty, former draft pick and longtime Titan, played for 4 NFL organizations, and now headed to career number 2 with the NFL Network and Good Morning Football. Jason McCourty joins us on OutKick 360. You can follow him at McCourty Twins. J-Mac, it's good to see you, man. Hope things are well. Congratulations.
Look at that guy.
Appreciate it. Likewise. Appreciate you guys having me on.
So we were having this discussion a bit yesterday or the day prior. Did you know about Good Morning Football before or after? I'm saying officially, before or after you announced your retirement?
I hadn't signed my contract, so it wasn't a done deal, but it was in the process of getting done when I officially retired on last Friday.
I urged you all the way back when you were just a meager Titan to split off from Dev on Twitter. Now you absolutely have to split off from Dev on Twitter. You've got to be your own man on Twitter with being a Good Morning Football co-host.
You're like the third person who said that to me. It's not a bad idea. I talked to, we have a marketing company that does a lot of that stuff for us or helps us with it. The only thing is now I'm starting back at 0. So we said we have to mull over the idea and figure out what's the best move moving forward. Because, I mean, when we joined the Twitter, the Instagram, all the social media stuff some years ago, it was just a marketing ploy. You know, we've been able to do some deals and all of that fun stuff together off the field, but we'll see what's to come when it comes to that stuff.
It'll grow pretty quickly, I think, if you're mentioning it on the show a couple times in the first couple weeks.
For sure.
As a personality on that show now, you know, people really like to hear from a guy who's got a vast array of experience, and you've played on really bad teams, and you've played on a team that reached the pinnacle. How valuable do you think that vast array of experiences that you've gone through is going to be to sit in that seat?
Yeah, I think that's the unique thing now to look back on. When I was in Tennessee and we went through 2-14, 3-13, and then somehow the football guys weren't on my side because I left Tennessee and joined the Browns, and we went 0-16, but was able to follow it up with the Super Bowl. But I think those experiences, that knowledge, I mean, I'll be able to talk about different teams in different situations, and I've lived it. I know exactly what it's like being in a locker room going into week 17 when you know you haven't won a single game all season, or what it's like knowing that you're eliminated for the playoffs down the stretch and you're trying to just get through the season, and you already have your flights booked and you already have your off-season basketball organization that you're playing in, all of those good things. But I also know what it's like to have a bye week in the first round of the playoffs, and what it's like to win a AFC championship game on the road and then head to the Super Bowl. What all of those weeks are, the 2 weeks leading up to the big game, what it's like. So I think being able to play 13 years gives me a plethora of knowledge to be able to talk about on TV every day. So I'm looking forward to being able to share that knowledge with fans.
Jason McCourty, our guest. I'm sure there's something that you could write in to make the story better. Maybe not, but a 6th-round pick in 2009, to say that you would go on to play 13 years, you win a Super Bowl, you would retire just before turning 35, you would win a Super Bowl with your brother, becoming the first brothers on a team to win a Super Bowl. That to me is remarkable, considering where expectations were when you were selected in 2009, Jason.
Oh, without a doubt. I remember in Nashville, this was after Cortland Finnegan retired, and I remember me and him were together and we were having a conversation, and Court, like myself, late round draft pick, he was drafted out of Samford in the 7th round, and he talked about retirement. And obviously we all know Court had a tremendous career, and there were people that loved him and there were people that hated him. And the one thing he said is, as he looked back on his career, he far exceeded any expectation that even he set forward for himself when his career first began. And now that I'm done and I look back and I reflect, I understand where that comments come from, because I remember coming into the league thinking, man, I can possibly be a gunner in this league for a few years and let's just see what happens. And end up starting kind of early in my career in Tennessee, baptism by fire. Anybody that's been a fan for a long time remembers that game in Foxborough, 59 to zip. It was one of my first starts as a rookie. Probably shouldn't have been out there in retrospect, but it was a good learning experience. So to where I sit now, all of those accolades and things you said, man, it's been a blessing and one heck of a journey.
My son was born that weekend. I watched that from the hospital room with him laying on my chest at the hospital. One of the few games I got to miss, a good one to miss.
Yeah, the 59.
I was about to say, lucky for you, you didn't have to play in that game. I remember, I think Lindell got hurt in the first half, and fortunate for him, he got to stay in the warm locker room for the second half.
I think that was Alteron Werner's. He was starting opposite you, right, in that game?
No, that was my rookie year. So Vern came in the next year. You know, it was me, Mouton, and Kerry Williams.
Yeah.
Yep. Cortland got hurt. Nick got hurt, and Vinny Fuller all got hurt the game before that. So we had 3 young guys all out there playing against Brady, Moss, Welker, and the whole crew.
Did you do anything with? Did you say anything to Moss? Did Moss say anything to you that particular day?
No, I really don't think there was anything to say that day, especially from our standpoint. There wasn't much trash talk to go around. Probably the only thing I would have talked about at that point, they had the heated benches that didn't have the platform for your feet. So my feet were freezing. So at that point late in the game, I probably would have said, Mr. Moss, would you mind talking to Mr. Belichick and getting some better heated benches? So when we're getting our butts kicked over there, we can at least stay warm.
Brady's still playing, though, J-Mac. I mean, this is remarkable that you're retiring before he does, and you made it 13 years.
For sure. I mean, I don't think that guy's ever going to retire. When the news first broke that he was retiring, I remember saying to my friends and family, I'm just like, this guy was second in the MVP voting. Like, it's impossible to retire when you're at the top of your game at that level. And until he drops off, I don't see him walking away from the game.
So I'm wondering which side of this you come down on. Wide receiver boom going on now where some teams are saying, hey, I need Devontae Adams, I need Tyreek Hill, I need A.J. Brown, and I'm going to pay him bucket loads of money to get that guy on my team. The teams that are letting him go are saying, hey, there are quality receivers coming into the league every year, and I can replace that guy at a rookie rate and spend my money elsewhere. I'm going that direction. If it keeps going that way, maybe receivers will turn into running backs. You think that you need that premier guy and to spend that kind of money, or do you think replenishing might be the way to go? I know it's a case-by-case basis, but if you look at it broadly, where are you?
Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of twofold because, like, the first part of that question was, do you need that guy? And I think that is a luxury that is very, very valuable because those guys can dictate the pass defense for the other team. But the second part is, do you pay that level of money? And I think it depends on situations. Obviously, it's case by case, but just to be even a little bit more specific, when you look at a team like the Philadelphia Eagles and you go and you're able to bring A.J. Brown in and give him a boatload of cash, but your quarterback's on a rookie deal, you're kind of able to do that. But you look at the Raiders who brought Devontae Adams, and they're still paying Derek Carr. It slims the money out as you're trying to really build a roster and build a team to go and compete for a championship. And I think it also depends upon where a team is at. I mean, you look at a team like the Tennessee Titans letting go of A.J. Brown, drafting Treylon Burks, who when you look at him in college, I mean, you're crazy if you don't think he reminds you of A.J. Brown. The toughest thing is that Titans team is a really, really good football team, man. They're a team that you can make a case for if Derrick Henry's able to stay healthy, Ryan Tannehill's able to build off of having the King D-Hen back there and be able to get back on kind of where he was a year before this last year. They're a team that's competing for a Super Bowl. So when you kind of switch out A.J. Brown for a young guy coming in, there's always going to be that variable, that question mark of, all right, you can tell from his college film, like, hey, this kid has a chance to be really good, but how fast does it happen? But to me, I mean, you get a premier wide receiver out there on the edge. I remember we played against Kansas City, the Chiefs in a conference championship game. We double-teamed Tyreek Hill the entire game. My brother, Devin McCourty, leaned his way the entire game, and we dedicated 2 players to him. And that just opens up the field for so many other things. So that guy out there is invaluable. So it's to the point where you have a young quarterback. I mean, we watched Josh Allen. They bring Stephon Diggs in, and obviously Josh Allen his trajectory was, you can tell he was going to be really good, but the difference that it makes having a number one guy out there, that there's times you can just chuck the ball up to him and see what he does.
Jason McCourty, our guest, recently retired, 13-year NFL career, now with Good Morning Football. Early wake-up calls on the horizon, Jason. Surely it's nothing new to the football world, but, I mean, 7 a.m. start time means you get to the studio at what time?
Probably between 6 and 6:15. So it's going to be, like you said, early.
Yeah, early. Then you're leaving your house. You're probably getting up 4:35. I mean, you got to know exactly what's going on in the sports world and going to bed early. I don't know. I couldn't do it. You're an early riser, though. Will you retell the story of the car that you drove to Nashville after the draft and whatever happened to it?
Man, I got my grandparents had got my brother and myself. I had a Nissan Altima, and my then girlfriend, now wife, that was, I guess, towards the middle of July, packed the car up. We were in New Jersey at the time, New York at the time, packed the car up, loaded it up with all my belongings, and drove it down. I think it was 13 hours down to Nashville. So it was a little black Altima coupe, but I had the windows tinted. It looked pretty good. I was very proud of my Altima, and I drove that all the way up until I signed my second contract. Then I eventually bought myself a car going into my 4th year down there in Nashville, and with that car, gave it to my little cousin, who then got into a car accident when she was totally fine, left unscathed, but the car got totaled. So very disappointed, because it was a coupe. It was really good on gas. I could have held on to that thing and could still be possibly driving it today. But yeah, I used to drive that thing to training camp and to the facility every single day.
Why? I know you wanted the car here, but why not just fly in for was it the rookie OTAs that you were driving in for?
Nah, so I flew in for the OTAs and just walked around wherever I needed to go.
Okay.
And then when it was time for training camp, that was me kind of just speaking it all into existence. I drove down with the thought process, I'm going to make the team, and this is it. So I'll have to find a place after training camp.
That was before Uber and Lyft, too. You had a harder time getting around.
Way before. That makes me feel old.
When did you know that, hey, I'm going to be more than a gunner in this league?
Man, I would say probably my second year, when I got a chance to compete for the starting cornerback position, and then got a chance to go out there. But I would say early on, especially like just to kind of reflect on it, my first training camp, I remember just the highs and lows of it. I got an interception in the Hall of Fame game early on, but I was like the 8th cornerback on the depth chart. So it's not many snaps you're getting going against the starters, and it was all the way up until the last cut down day. And I remember at that time, what we used to do was Coach Fisher, I guess, would let Steve Wardison, who was our strength coach, know who was going to be released. But for those 2 days, we would be in the building. And I know now, I believe guys have days off and they're calling them in to release them. But we'd be in the building. Guys would be in the locker room. Some guys would be playing PlayStation. Some guys would be having conversations, playing cards, whatever the case may be. And I remember that day hiding out in like the players' lounge, me and Kenny Britt. And obviously, Kenny, the first rounder, he had nothing to worry about. But I think he was just trying to empathize with what I was going through, and hiding out, not knowing whether Coach Wardison was going to come get me. And then when we would finish all the cuts, we'd go into the bubble and get into our stretch lines and just do like a functional warm-up. And I remember looking at those stretch lines, because you think about it, the roster in a matter of 2 days goes from 75 people to 53, and realizing, man, like how crazy it was to still be one of those 53 standing and know that, all right, my dream continues a little bit longer. But I would say my second year, when I was able to win out that battle and become a starter and then go out there and perform that year, it let me know, like, man, I got something with this.
How weird is that part of it? Like, you want nobody to say anything to you. It's not like they come up and say, congratulations, you've made it. So nobody.
Winning option here, the kick.
Exactly. And then you guys know, because you're always reporting on it. The last cut, it happens on a Sunday a lot of time. And then by Monday, teams are claiming people, and somebody else is getting released who thought that they made the team on Sunday. So, man, those moments at the end of training camp, those are tough ones. Your anxiety, everything is going through your mind. You're thinking about your good plays, your bad plays. But it was a blessing that Coach Waterson didn't come and tap me on the shoulder and hit me with the Coach Fish needs to come see you. Because I've seen guys happen to be in the middle of a Madden game and get that tap on the shoulder. That's not a good feeling.
I got somebody in mind. I wonder if he's in at least in your top 3. Who's the toughest cover you dealt with? That's somebody you saw relatively regularly, not a once or twice guy.
Yeah, that's always a good question. I always say to people, that quarterback position determines a lot about the wide receiver position. But I'll stay in the division for this one, and I'll say Andre Johnson. Getting a chance early on in my career, I didn't touch him because Cortland Finnegan was there, and we all know the infamous matchups between Dre and Cortland. And then as Cortland, when he moved on to the Rams and signed his deal there, I'd be matched up and follow him around the field. And he was tough. He was just so big and so strong. And then the crazy thing is Dre moves on, and then you got to go against DeAndre Hopkins playing and play out with his grabbing, pushing, pulling, and his ability to catch everything around him. So I would definitely say Dre was a tough cover. And just to name one more, going against Antonio Brown was tough because Big Ben could extend a play, and he'd throw the ball to AB sometimes 20 times a game, and you had to be good every single time you lined up against him.
DeAndre Hopkins was who I was thinking, because I remember writing a piece about, like, there was a game where once or twice I thought you had him, like, you were blanketing him, and he was making catches. And I was like, it's an absolutely hopeless job.
He finds a way, and to me, that's one of the best characteristics about him, because when you watch his game, he's not the quickest guy off the line of scrimmage. When you look at the Keenan Allens and the Devontae Adams, and he's not the fastest guy, straight line speed, but he's a guy who you can get your hands on him off the line of scrimmage. You can feel like you're stride for stride with him down the field. You jump up for the ball, you turn around, and the referee has his 2 hands up, and it's a touchdown. And that's his innate ability to just make sure when that ball is up in the air that it belongs to him.
Throughout the Bills, throughout the Chiefs, throughout the Rams, throughout the Bucks, who's somebody you really like this year? Maybe this is your first prediction question as a broadcaster. Who's somebody you really like this season?
I'm excited for the Chargers. Justin Herbert, a young quarterback who's up and coming, who has shown each and every year his ability to improve. They were able to re-sign Mike Williams to give him that still 1-2 punch of him and Keenan Allen. And there's not really a reason to talk about the offense much because they were rolling last year. And the biggest thing is on the defensive side of the ball. They were able to bring in Khalil Mack, Sebastian Joseph Day, Austin Johnson, the guy who was drafted by the Tennessee Titans, in addition to signing J.C. Jackson and a guy like Kyle Van Noy. These are 2 guys who have won championships. They understand what it takes, but they've made a lot of improvements on the defensive side of the ball. So I'm excited to see kind of what they can do. The toughest thing for them, obviously, is going to be that division. I mean, you name the Kansas City Chiefs, Russell Wilson joining in with the Denver Broncos, and we've already talked about Devontae Adams, him joining Derek Carr there in Vegas with my guy Josh McDaniels going down there to coach. So I like the Chargers' chances, and I want to see what they're able to do this year and how far they can take it.
Jason McCourty with us now with Good Morning Football. One of the other areas he's going to be great in among the several, you were the player rep for the NFLPA in the locker room. So, I mean, you know the business side of it and getting the information to the guys that don't know anything about the business side of it. So at some point, those type of questions are going to come up, and you had a firsthand account for all of it.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I can remember at that point, we had Steve Hutchinson and my guy, Matt Hasselbeck. Those were the veterans on the team. I think it was my 4th year, just got my 2nd contract with the team, and they pushed me into the role. And at that time, I really didn't know much about the PA. Used to listen to DeMaurice Smith D when he came around and spoke to the team. But when you're young, you get in the NFL, this is your dream. Like, you didn't dream, I've said this in our PA meetings, you don't dream about, hey, I'm going to join a union when I get there. You dream about putting on an NFL jersey and taking the field. And I'm thankful for them, because once I got involved, I was able to learn so much and try to convey all of those messages and the things guys needed to know in the locker room. So very proud what I've been able to do in the Players Association and continue to do as an executive committee member still to this day.
So you were bridging the gap between the era that had 2-a-days versus the group now that barely practices every 4 days, right? But
Yep.
you will, I think, you will look back on you'll be the veteran who looks forward to. You remember back in my day when we didn't have fully guaranteed contracts. Aside from whatever's about to happen with the Watson suspension, that contract can set a precedent for the very top quarterbacks that you mentioned, Herbert, Burrow, and others that are going to be looking for the top money. And eventually it trickles down to other positions whenever teams get desperate to sign those players.
Without a doubt. And we talked about it. I mean, Kirk Cousins did it a few years ago. Now, his wasn't the huge long-term deal with the 200-something million. It was a short, I think, 3-year deal worth maybe somewhere in the 80s millions of dollars, and it was fully guaranteed. And what we've talked about in our union that when basketball got their contracts that were fully guaranteed, it wasn't something that was written in the CBA. It was that the players started demanding it. They weren't going to sign deals that weren't fully guaranteed. So to what you just said, Deshaun Watson setting a precedent is going to be up to the guys after that. Kyler Murray just got paid as we go along. Fortunately or unfortunately for us, all of our contract details come out. So as the days go by, we'll know exactly the details of his contract. But come together, it's going to start with the quarterback position because those are the guys that have the power to say, hey, I'm not signing on the dotted line unless my contract is fully guaranteed. So it'll be interesting to see how it all goes along because Kirk Cousins did it, and it's been a little while now, and now you see the deal that the Cleveland Browns handed out.
When do you officially start with Good Morning Football?
Monday. We're live at it, early morning, Monday.
Get right after it, man. They don't just wait for football. I mean, they want you to jump right in. I love it. And I know you've been on the show recently, so congratulations
and
on that.
I don't think my wife wants me in the house for that long, so I think a week was it. She was all right. You can get out the house and go find some work. So
I think this is going to be very good for you to. Well, I'll let you speak for it, but for me, in my mind, I think training camp's about to start. You're a free agent. You didn't latch onto a roster. This is going to allow you to not think about that so much, and you're going to have this job to keep you acclimated to football.
Without a doubt. I did an interview yesterday talking about that. Last year I played 7 games and tore up the Lisfranc ligaments in my foot. So I kind of was going into year 13 last year with the thought process of, this definitely could be my last year, and started the year off strong and felt pretty good health-wise. And then you get hurt. And I was rehabbing this year and spoke to the defensive coaches down in Miami, and there was possibly an opportunity for me to return there. And just the way my body felt, like you said, retired right before 35, to turn 35 and play football again, coming off a major surgery, knowing that I'm going to be out there in pain, just didn't seem worth it. And right now, feels great to know I've been working out with my brother's son back here in Jersey, and he's getting ready to drive up to Foxborough on Sunday. It's a great feeling knowing that I'm not heading anywhere, because if there's a football player that tells you he enjoys training camp, he's lying. Nobody enjoys training camp. But like you said, I know when the season rolls around, it's going to be nice to still be involved and know that I'm not too far from the game, because I know I'm going to miss it.
How is that foot? I know that's an injury that lingers and can be tough to recover from, not just to play, but in life.
Yeah, it's exactly what you just said, lingers. And right now, it's not terrible. Like, I'm able, all of my daily stuff I do, walking, moving around, I go work out, is fine. Still running, trying to go out there and run full speed or make cuts or stuff like that. Still swells up, still is in pain. I'm still doing PT and all of that. So it's a process. And I quickly saw once I got hurt that I don't know if this is going to be worth trying to play through.
Both you and your brother don't look for the recognition, but I know both of you in the same year were recognized as the Walter Payton Man of the Year for your respective teams at the time, the Titans and the Patriots. You still have the Sickle Cell Foundation that you work with, right? The raising money on that. And you work so well in the community here as well as other spots that you landed. You deserve the accolades for that and the props for the solid career, man. You're one of the best that we had to deal with. Hopefully we were the same for you in that regard among the other markets you were in. And we hope that you're not a stranger now that you're joining forces in the media with us.
Big time.
Hey, definitely. I may be hitting you guys up for some for some tips and all that. And hey, you guys reach out to my guy Robbie over there, the PR for the Titans. Tell him, can I get a tweet, an Instagram post, something saying congrats to J-Mac on retiring? Can I get something? You see, I got the Titans gear in the background. I'm a Titan through and through, so tell him I need some of that love when you talk to those guys.
Yeah, he's not. Their social media department's all new hipsters, Jason. It's not any guys you know.
That's got to be coming. That's got to be coming. By the way, if you need advice on makeup, Paul's got you covered for the shine on the head every day.
Yeah, I'm not that shiny.
Hey, exactly. Hey, it's fortunate when you got to go on TV. You don't have to spend any time in a chair to touch your hair. So me and Paul can relate. There's nothing like being bald.
They'll take good care of you. Hey, we appreciate you very much.
Thank you, man. Congratulations.
You'll be terrific. Congrats.
Thank you, guys. Good to talk to you.
Same here. There's Jason McCourty at McCourty Twins for the time being, is where you can find both him and Devin.
Yeah, he's got to split off on
This is OutKick 360. Coming up, Brent Hubbs will join us in just over 5 minutes, and we will have the latest on the notice of allegations from the NCAA to the University of Tennessee. He'll join us by phone. That's coming up right at 4 o'clock Central this afternoon, 5 in the East. Great chat there with Jason McCourty. Always a class act, and we will have him on again soon.
That's terrific.
We have been recapping SEC Media Days all week, each day. Today is when they release the media vote. And the second-place teams, we found more intriguing with the discussion, certainly, than the first place. But even the last-place selections are pretty much widely agreed upon between Vanderbilt in the East, Auburn in the West, and Kentucky edges out Tennessee barely for the most points for media votes in regards to who finishes second in the East. Meanwhile, Texas A&M, not by a big margin, but much larger than Kentucky and Tennessee, separating 2 and 3. Texas A&M with 968 points that puts them in the second place finishing position for the preseason accolades, which mean nothing. It wins you nothing. But it gives you an idea of where people see certain rosters in the preseason. They have Texas A&M behind Alabama. Arkansas and Ole Miss are neck and neck behind A&M. And then to finish off the SEC West, LSU, Mississippi State, and Auburn. And I said earlier, Mississippi State of that little group of 3 teams in the West, and then the 3 teams in the East that rounded out South Carolina, Missouri, Vanderbilt. I look at Mississippi State as a team that could be a surprise that finishes a little much higher than, where they are right now at 5th. I think they could get up in that 2, 3, 4 range and pull off an upset or two. We'll see.
I'm a little bit surprised by Kentucky ahead of Tennessee.
Yeah, and they're coming off the 10-win season, and they bring back their quarterback, and they have arguably the best running back in the SEC to lean on. We lean on Brent Hubbs next with news in Knoxville. We'll chat with Brent Hubbs in a matter of minutes with VolQuest.com with the very latest on the Tennessee Volunteers and the NCAA issuing their notice of allegations involving the investigation of the Jeremy Pruitt era of Tennessee football and the money spent on recruits and players and the violations there and the impact it could have on the program moving forward and what it means for Jeremy Pruitt. That's all coming up with Brent Hubbs momentarily. This from Andrew Brandt, former Packers executive within the front office, former agent as well. But the only real revenue stream we get to see from the NFL individually are the Green Bay Packers because of the fact that it's publicly traded. You can buy stock in them. And therefore, they are an open book with their revenue. Here's his tweet, Paul. The Packers report a total revenue of $579 million. Of that amount, $347 is national revenue. $232 million is local revenue. And then he says, yes, record numbers in all categories. So they continue to rise. And this is even before we see that new money come in with these billion-dollar 10-year agreements that are coming up for the NFL and their media rights.
Well, you would think that 347 national revenue would be everybody's number.
Yeah, and that's the split for TV and other things.
Yeah.
And then the 232 would be tickets, merch, and
local sponsorship,
parking, and anything else like that, right?
Yeah, local sponsorship.
But today is their financial day, as they call it.
All those stockholders getting there.
Open up the books. Open up the books. Speaking of the NFL, they have been overwhelmed. That was the report. They opened up ticket sales in Germany, and they had so many people on the server trying to buy tickets that they could not keep up with it. And they were already anticipating a major influx of people trying to buy tickets, and even they could not predict what it was going to be like.
Well, I hope for the sake of the German fans, they're not using this dynamic pricing that Springsteen is using, which we're going to talk about next week, which basically, based on the people in the room, sets the price based on the demand.
I doubt you had 770,000 people in the room simultaneously. That's what they're claiming happened. I pulled up the report now just to see exactly how many people. Over nearly 800,000 individual servers logged on attempting to purchase tickets. And, of course,
that's why I busted. You have to do a pre-verification in the instance that I'm talking about, so it limits how many people can try to get in there, but still.
They 70,000 seats in the stadium.
It's time for America to fix its ticket problems and American entities to do the same.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Ticketmaster is running it, with the surcharge prices is what?
Fees.
Yeah,
well, there's this one thing I can never remember what it's called because it doesn't have tickets in the thing, but they run a lot of commercials. The woman saying how much cheaper her ticket was than the guy sitting next to her.
Yeah.
I've tried to look at this app for last-minute tickets, because that's its thing. It gets prices way down because people are running out of, patience and options and whatever. Yeah, the ticket price is great. The fees are match the ticket prices. The fees in some cases are more than the ticket prices. It's complete BS.
So due to the high demand, this is from Pro Football Talk, the resale price of these Germany tickets, by the way, the game will be played this year is Tampa Bay, Seattle. So you could get Brady in his final year playing the first game there in Germany for him. You've got resale value as high as $33,760.
I mean, come on.
Now, that can be the highest ticket that someone just put on a site just to, throw it out there.
You're not going to get it.
Right. Tickets originally went on sale Monday with the top range at under $200. That's the top to get in, face value. And then those sold out, and now you've got the resale market.
Resale ticket market, people, it's very, very unreasonable.
Least expensive ticket, according to StubHub, $575 to get in the game in Germany.
I mean, I could see paying that to see Tom Brady, but how big's the stadium? What are the sight lines like, et cetera, et cetera? That matters.
Yeah. 70,000. I mean, sight lines for 70,000, generally speaking, they're about the same. give or take dimensions of how steep the upper deck goes. But
well, I'm presuming what city is it? Munich.
Munich.
You know,
they're using the soccer stadium.
Yeah, I should know this, but if it has a track around it, sightlines stink. It does not. Is it Bayern? Yeah,
it is Bayern. Now we head to Knoxville. Brent Hubbs with us, VolQuest.com. Plenty to discuss today on this Friday edition, where the NCAA finally has the notice of allegations out about the investigation involving Jeremy Pruitt and the volunteer football program at the time. Brent, how are you?
I'm doing good, guys. Hope y'all are doing all right.
Yes. So the violations, 18 of them per the NCAA in this 52-page report. I mentioned earlier in the show that you were coming on simply because I said there's no way we're going to be able to scan through a 52-page report in this tweet with any ease. There are 18 violations, $60,000 of cash and or gifts given to football recruits, players, or family through Jeremy Pruitt or his wife. Do I have the details right? And what to you is the biggest of the news that came out today in regards to this notice of allegations for Jeremy Pruitt?
Well, I think two things. One, I think Jeremy Pruitt's going to get a show cause as we thought, because his wife's involved in this, and he's in many of those 18 level 1 violations. There were over 200 individual violations, but 18 level 1 violations, which encompass multiple people involved in that. 12 staff members, which includes recruiting staff members. Derek Ansley's mentioned, Shelton Felton, Brian Niedermeyer, all mentioned involved in either arranging visits where guys were paid for the visit, or distributing money themselves, or whatever the case may be. I think from the university standpoint, two things stand out. One, there's no lack of institutional control allegation against the university, which is a big step. I don't think Tennessee expected there to be one, but you never know with those situations. There's not one. Two, in that 52 pages, there's about a page and a half where the letter of the notice of allegations praises the University of Tennessee for the way they went about the investigative process. The fact that they didn't just look at the initial allegation and say, okay, that's it. They continued to dig. They found more allegations, and they got to the bottom of it. They saved the NCAA a ton of work, as we've talked about on this show before. It's why they spent $2 million in legal fees for this. But they were praised for that today, and Tennessee is hopeful that they will be rewarded for that, because you've got other institutions who have not cooperated with the NCAA that way. See the LSU basketball program, the Kansas basketball program that just won the NCAA tournament has not been the most cooperative program with the NCAA. So Tennessee is banking on that, helping them with whatever the resolution here is to the notice of allegations.
Well, my first reaction was like, if you're going to do this, do it all the way. $60,000 isn't worth the risk.
No, I mean, if you would have said to someone, hey, the University of Tennessee or University X's football program has 18 level 1 violations against them, I don't think anybody would have had the dollar figure at 60. Okay. I mean, that's what, about $3,000 a violation, something like that, the $3,500 or something. This is also the same university that their basketball coach got a show cause because what started out as some impermissible phone calls turned into a barbecue that shouldn't have happened and led to a guy being out of coaching for multiple years. So we've learned at the university, covering the University of Tennessee, Paul, anything is possible. But I think that's in terms of the hot take or that kind of takeaway, I think everybody's going, really $60,000? That's kind of it. That's kind of a takeaway there that a lot of fans have today.
Going back and just referencing like what was going on at the time, they got rid of a lot of these coaches and those mentioned other than Pruitt, right? And then ultimately Pruitt's out too. Had they not done that, and you think about, had they not acted the way they did, this is a much harsher tone and impacts the program a great deal. So long story short, with all of it, Brent, the money spent to cooperate fully with this investigation is going to be money well spent.
Well, and I mean, you also didn't pay $12 million for Jeremy Pruitt to go away. I mean, you fired him with cause and didn't pay him. You didn't pay Brian Niedermeyer. You didn't pay Shelton Felton because you fired those guys with cause. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're looking at it from a dollars and cents standpoint, they probably would have cost them probably $14 million or so, and they spent a couple of million in legal fees, and there's your net gain. Now the question is going to be, what else does the NCAA want Tennessee to do from a punishment standpoint? They self-imposed. Tennessee did a dozen scholarship reduction last season. Is that enough? Does the NCAA want more? Josh Heupel said at SEC Media Day yesterday they're not going to be at 85 this fall, which makes you wonder if they aren't self-imposing a few more this season as well. Tennessee's whole plan with this, and Dondi Plowman's plan, and of course Danny White inherited into it, but her thing was, let's get it past us as quick as we can. Let's get it over and done with as quick as we can. And it's obviously taken a while, but they want the NCAA to accept their punishment if they will, and we'll see. Tennessee has until October. They have 90 days from today to respond. They can ask for an expedited hearing earlier. They may do that. We'll see. But they have 90 days to respond to the notice of allegations. I don't know that Tennessee is going to dispute any of the 18 allegations because they don't involve anybody currently at the University of Tennessee. And again, I think Tennessee wants this past them as quick as they can get it past them moving forward.
And you want those scholarships back that are self-imposed if the NCAA is going to just accept what they've done and move forward, right?
Yeah, no question. And again, I mean, there was a conscious decision of, hey, let's not drag this out over 3 or 4 years from a scholarship reduction standpoint. Let's get it behind us as quick as we can, and let's take a hit on that if we have to in year number one. Tennessee wasn't going to end up being at 85, I don't think, in year one, unless they just signed a bunch of people and put a bunch of people on scholarship, because they had so many guys who transferred out of the program. And of course, the NCAA did not have the policy that they have now, where you can sign an unlimited amount of guys as long as you're under the 85. So it made sense for Tennessee to go ahead and do some self-imposement. Now, it hurt them a little bit in the transfer portal in January in terms of their numbers that they had to balance there. But outside of that, I think it was a decision, again, move past. Okay, Josh Heupel's here for the long haul. He doesn't have to win it all in year one or year two. We know we're building. The easiest way to build is to get that cloud over us and away from us as fast as we can, and that's what they're trying to do.
What did you learn most from the Vols day yesterday on SEC Media's center stage?
I think the biggest thing is just the comfort that everybody has in the program right now. You know, a year ago, there was so much unknown. What is this offense? What is this defense? What is this Heupel guy all about? He seems really nice, and he seems really interested in us as players beyond just being players on the field. I think now that they've been around each other for 18 months, there's a real comfort level in kind of the direction and the culture and the expectations that's there. So I think that was the biggest takeaway. That may sound a little cheesy, but I do think for a program that's had so much instability for so long, the idea of some stability in back-to-back years is a big deal for Tennessee. I mean, it really is. And I think that there's stability, but there's also clear understanding of what that stability is and how it goes about its business every day.
Were you surprised to see Kentucky edge out the Vols for second place in the East in the media poll?
No, I mean, same media poll had somebody pick Vanderbilt to win it. Yeah. So, you take a little bit of that, you take a lot of that with a grain of salt, but it was close. I think that everybody, says Georgia's clearly the number one. And then the question is, what does it look like behind them? And the media from down there said it's either Tennessee or Kentucky. I think there was 6 points difference or something like that. So about as many people said Tennessee was going to finish second as they did Kentucky was going to finish second. And I think Tennessee and Kentucky on paper are the two best teams below Georgia. We don't know what Florida's going to be. We'll see. Now, South Carolina is a bit of the media darling right now. They're bringing in a bunch of new faces. We'll see what that looks like. But it's interesting. I mean, Tennessee's supposed to beat Florida this year. They can't ever beat Florida, it seems like. Kentucky's supposed to beat Tennessee, and they have for several years, and they have a hard time beating Tennessee, it seems like. So we'll see how it shakes out with those two teams. Part of this is scheduling too, Paul. When you look at it, I don't think Kentucky's travels and Kentucky's road is as tough. They don't play Alabama. They don't play at LSU. And so I think when you look at the schedule, it's easier to see Kentucky with more conference, with one more conference win than it is to see Tennessee, I think, for a lot of people when they look at that schedule.
Hendon Hooker was very impressive. And I left an interview with him yesterday, Brent, thinking, how did this guy not win that job last year? I still ask that same question. And he said one thing he wants to do is be more, calm in the pocket and trust what he's reading. And maybe it took him working behind Joe Milton whenever he finally got the opportunity. He was still leading. We went into detail on that. But when we finally got the opportunity, he hit the ground running and didn't look back.
Yeah, I think that Hendon was punished by wearing a non-contact jersey. Joe Milton ran around and looked pretty in a non-contact jersey. He had like a 70-yard touchdown run in a scrimmage. And so you're expecting him to do all these things with his legs, and that's not the type of player Joe Milton is. And Hendon Hooker didn't throw the ball down the field. He took the dump off really quick. I don't know that he did have as much patience in the pocket as he needed in the scrimmage settings. And you just didn't know kind of where his toughness was. And you watched the Virginia Tech tape. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you could see some competitiveness there, but you just didn't know how, if that was going to translate or not in a new system. And, I think what you saw was once he got on the field and got his opportunity, his competitiveness showed through. His legs played a big factor. And then, what would have, and I don't think Joe Milton would have completed a bunch of balls, okay, because I think he was still overthrowing everybody. But you had a couple things happen when you look at this, in that you made a real shift. Tennessee did after the Florida game, okay. You moved Velus Jones inside, okay, to the slot receiver position, which changed him dramatically, changed his production dramatically. And then you move and look at moving Cedric Tillman as the number one guy. You changed kind of what you were doing offensively in the passing game. I think Joe Milton showed you he was going to overthrow a bunch of people who didn't have enough touch. So I don't think his numbers would have taken off the way Hendon Hooker's did. But you go back and look at that Florida game, Hendon Hooker and Tennessee offense, they weren't real good, right? They had a couple of moments, but they weren't real good. Then they go to Missouri, and you're like, who the hell are these guys, right? 21 points in first quarter, and it's their boat racing a really bad Missouri team, and it clicked at that moment. It clicked for Hendon, it clicked for Cedric Tillman, it clicked for Velus Jones, and they were off and running. And so I think that helped Hendon Hooker a good bit as well. Probably didn't have that in the preseason because they were trying to play guys in some different spots.
Final thing for you, the Vols get a big commit today at wide receiver. One of their primary targets was Nathan Leacock out of North Carolina, and he's committed to Tennessee.
Yeah, he commits this afternoon, and that's an important one for Tennessee. A big body guy. He's tall. He can run. I think speed's obviously of utmost importance for Josh Heupel when he looks at the receiver position. And he was a priority for Tennessee even before Carnell Tate committed to Ohio State. This is not one of those deals where they went, oh, we got to go hard after this guy because we didn't get Carnell Tate. Nathan Leacock was a priority. They were taking him 6-8 months ago. As fast as he wanted to commit, they would take him. Kelsey Pope did a really good job in that transition. From Cody Burns leaving to Kelsey Pope recruiting Nathan Leacock. Nathan Leacock said, hey, he recruits me like I'm his number one priority every day. And he's a big fan of Kelsey Pope. They have a great relationship. But that's a big get for Tennessee to get a weapon to go with Nico. We've talked about that. He's got to have some weapons around him. You got Sham, the big offensive tackle, a couple of weeks ago. Now you get him a weapon on the outside at the receiver spot. And we'll see, what else they get for him weapon-wise. But that's a big get for Tennessee.
Brent Hubbs, VolQuest.com, has everything covered at the site, he and his great staff. Brent, thank you for the time. Busy day, I know, with the notice of allegations from the NCAA. Well recapped there, and we'll go to the site for more.
All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Y'all have a great weekend.
Same to you, man. There's Brent Hubbs. He and Austin Price join us weekly at this time as we dive in with all of the news, notes, and headlines from the University of Tennessee and SEC galore with all the news coming out this week. And the biggest today for Knoxville is the notice of allegations. And he pointed it out there, Paul, based on the phrasing of that notice of allegations, Tennessee is viewed as a group that was they cooperated. They were an athletic department that, if they didn't take responsibility, they took responsibility for hiring the staff and the head coach and got rid of him, fired him with cause. And I can't help but think, like, how do you come down hard on a university that cooperates if you're trying to send an example to a university who doesn't, and you slap Tennessee with harsh penalties, more than what they've already self-imposed.
The timetable's fast.
I agree. Yeah. Speed it up, if at all possible. Hang with us, 6th and Peabody, our location, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. We've got Congressman Jim Jordan, who's about to join us. A lot in the world of college sports, college football, name, image, likeness being discussed on Capitol Hill, conference realignment, and much more. That's next on OutKick 360. OutKick 360 rolls on across the OutKick network, 6th and Peabody, our location, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Name, image, likeness, a huge discussion across the college sports world and recently on Capitol Hill. Conference realignment, certainly a hot topic on sports talk radio and much more this time of year, and really for the last 12 months or so since Texas and Oklahoma made the move to the SEC and made that move official by announcing they're coming as late as 2025, maybe earlier. And now the Big Ten's involved. We have a Wisconsin Hall of Famer in the studio with us, United States Representative Jim Jordan, our guest. Congressman Jordan, great to have you in. Welcome to Nashville.
You bet. Good to be with you guys.
Name, members, likeness. We had Marsha Blackburn on about a month and a half or so ago, and we know she met with Greg Sankey, Commissioner of the SEC, on Capitol Hill and discussed possible federal legislation. I don't know where that went.
Yeah.
Because right now, state by state, they're determining where the money's going and what the universities can or cannot do. But this past week, we had coverage in Atlanta where the SEC met with all the media members across the conference in the country. Commissioner Sankey came on with us and mentioned that he wants some form of guardrails in place. Can it come from the federal level?
Well, we're notorious for screwing things up, so I don't know if you want to start there. I do think there needs to be some guardrails, but I don't know if anyone knows what those guardrails are yet. So let's see. My concern is, I get that you need this. I understand why the courts have done what they've done and why the decision was made. You got these athletes who are providing the entertainment, yet they're doing all the work and providing the entertainment. They're not getting compensated for this huge business. So I get it. But my concern, frankly, is what does it mean to other sports? What does it mean to the full athletic department? When you got USC and UCLA coming in the Big Ten, I know the universities I was a part of, we offered a ton of sports. Wisconsin offered, I think, 20-some sports. I think Ohio State has the largest athletic department maybe in the country. I don't know that USC offers the same number of opportunities to student athletes on their campus. And how does that all going to work? And so I'm nervous. And frankly, from just a personal bias, what does it mean in the sport of wrestling? Right now, every school in the Big Ten has wrestling. USC and UCLA do not. So you got 14 schools. The Big Ten tournament's the wrestling tournament's a huge thing. But now you got two of the schools who aren't going to have that. What does that mean to the sport that I care so much about? So I think there are a lot of questions. I don't know if you want Congress weighing in on it. Maybe we'll have to at some point, but we'll just. I think we need to know what. Maybe it's hearings to get some information, and we go from there.
It seems like the Wild Wild West, though, because with the Supreme Court ruling last year, the NCAA took a step back in regulating anything because they're afraid of being sued. And now it's state by state, where there could be a state that doesn't allow what California or Alabama or Tennessee or Ohio will allow for those states' universities and private universities. So now it's left up to the individual states instead of here are the rules and regs across the board. And that's leading to more and more of, the have and the have-nots in college sports.
Well, yeah, and the NCAA is supposed to be that sort of umbrella organization that will come. They can't. I mean, another controversial subject. For me, it's not controversial. They can't even figure out if just guys should participate in guy sport and just girls should participate in girls sports, for goodness sake. So that they're supposed to be doing this, but again, I think we'll have to see. And I'm looking for the ideas that are going to make this all work. And there are all kinds of questions. Does the left guard get paid, whatever he gets, $100,000, and the quarterback he's protecting is getting $3 million, and how does all that shake out? And what the difference between Ohio State and maybe Indiana that doesn't have the same amount of resources to compensate these athletes? So I think there are lots of questions. Again, maybe it is hearings at Congress, and those can get all kinds of crazy things going, but we'll just have to see.
I don't know that's a federal issue, but I'm curious from a personal standpoint what you think with this conference expansion where we understand it maybe from the football perspective, but for the women's soccer team from USC commuting to Rutgers to play a game doesn't seem like an efficient use of a student/athlete's time.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Rutgers athletes already have to go to Lincoln, Nebraska. I mean, they go halfway across the country. Now they're going to go the rest of the way. Yeah, I think that doesn't make sense. And, of course, my generation, you guys are a little younger, but my generation, you grew up, the Big Ten was the Midwest. There was the Big 8 back then, Big 12 now. I mean, the conferences were regional parts of the country. And of course, the Rose Bowl was Ohio State playing USC. I mean, that's just now USC's in the same conference. It just doesn't seem to fit, but that's where it's headed. I don't know what the answers are in the long run. We'll have to see.
Ohio State, I know you're an Ohio State guy in regards to the state that you represent for sure. They were taking the lead in the conversation about conference realignment recently. Kevin Warren wasn't the first to come out and speak on it, the commissioner. It was the leadership at Ohio State. I took note of that because there are presidents and athletic directors that are stepping forward now that the NCAA is not doing so.
Yeah.
And Ohio State's one of them.
Yeah, no, it's a great institution, and the athletic department there and the tradition there is something special. I think the other thing, the thing that the Big Ten offers is the Big Ten Network. I mean, it's been tremendous, and I think that's something that obviously all these other universities who are looking at the Big Ten see. It's been great for fans. I mean, when our boys were competing, they wrestled for the University of Wisconsin, and I got to most of the matches. But when I couldn't, the Big Ten Network was great because you could watch them. Wherever they're wrestling in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I'm stuck in Washington. I got to watch them. So I think that's another thing that's driving this, and I think these other universities are interested in the Big Ten Conference see that as the revenue generator that it is.
So you're a high school wrestling legend.
I don't know about that.
The record is 154-1. At least that's what the bio says. Who's the one?
The one was actually his name was Rob Johnson. I can remember it like yesterday, and it was my senior year. So I was pretty close to reaching the goal, which was not to lose a scholastic competition match. Lost other matches outside of high school competition and lost in college some, but I didn't make it. But it was a good thing for me. I tell young people all the time, kids at my brother's wrestling camp. Tell them all the time is the best thing that ever happened to me. Even though I still wish I'd have won, best thing that ever happened to me. Helped prepare me to mentally and everything else he needed to do to be ready to compete at the collegiate level.
Was it close?
7-4. It wasn't as close as it should have been. I had one opportunity in a match where I had him, I thought, and then reversed him, was on top, and he got out of bounds, and I knew then I wasn't going to beat him that night. He just better that night than I was.
That night, what was his record? Do you remember?
He wound up being state champ that year, and he was in a different class.
Was he unbeaten as well?
His senior year he was, yeah. He was tough. He's darn tough. He was a couple-time All-American in college as well, so Robbie Johnson.
We'll keep going. Do we know what became of him?
Yeah. I don't know what happened, but he's still in the Columbus area, the last I heard.
Congressman Jim Jordan in studio with us. So you go on to Wisconsin. You're in the Athletic Hall of Fame, the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. How do you end up at Wisconsin? Is this solely based on the wrestling program?
Yeah. I mean, I went to college to wrestle.
That's it.
You're supposed to get a degree, so I got one in economics. But I'm old, so back in the late 70s, early 80s, I graduated high school in 1982. Big Ten was tough, but the toughest schools in the Big Ten were the University of Iowa and the University of Wisconsin. And they were the first Big Ten school to recruit me. I went up there and liked it, and the top athlete in collegiate wrestling in the 70s was a guy from Ohio who went to the University of Wisconsin, Lee Kemp, from the Cleveland area. He recruited me, and I thought that was the biggest thing in the world. And I wound up going there and had a great experience. My wife went there. We grew up together. She went there. Both our boys went there. My brother went there. My sister went there. Played in the band. So it was. We loved the Badgers.
Man, I respect the guys who were wrestlers in high school in my era. I couldn't do it. They walked around with a spit bottle trying to cut weight and stuff in the middle of class. It's a different life. You're either in or you're out, right?
Yeah.
You're a lifer to the sport if you do it.
Well, I mean, I wanted to play middle linebacker, but you can see I'm 5'7.5" on a good day, so I had to wrestle. My dad saw it, and it was kind of a thing starting to happen at our country school. And my dad and my uncle started the kids program at our school, and just got into it. And our whole family, we had uncles and cousins who wrestled, and it became sort of the thing we do. And my brother then took over our high school program. Coached it for 20 years, and we were at Graham High School when he coached. We were state champs every year, 20 years in a row. And he 2 years with the top high school program in the country. So we're able to beat Blair Academy. I know Paul's from New Jersey. We're able to beat Blair in those 2 years. So it's been great for our family.
Are you a UFC guy?
I like it. I tell you who really likes it, President Trump. And I've got him hooked on college wrestling some now too, but he loves UFC.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I respect those guys that get in there.
Tough.
But normally, if you have a wrestling background, you're all about what that turned into.
Yeah, it seems to help, but right now the striking is just so it used to be when they first come out, a bunch of wrestlers seem to dominate. They still do well, obviously.
Yeah.
But the guys that can box do well also.
Bengals or Browns guy?
I grew up in the 70s. I hate to say this being from Ohio, but I love the Steelers because they were, when you're a kid,
Wow.
when you're a kid, you like the winners. And Jack Lambert was my favorite. He was an Ohio guy playing linebacker, middle linebacker for the Steelers, so I love Jack. But Terry Bradshaw, Franco Harris, I can name them all. Lynn Swann, John Stallworth, Mean Joe Green, I can name all of them. But now I like the Bengals with Joe Burrows. You got to like him now, for goodness sake.
Hey, so after you gave mention to Portnoy and Barstool at the recent hearing, did they reach out to you? Are you going on with those guys anytime soon?
No, I don't think so. Now Russell, our media guy, is a big sports guy, was big Georgia guy. So it was funny. Of course, Portnoy was all over the social media after that. But it was, I thought, a pretty basic question, particularly when you see this attack on our First Amendment liberties happen anyway. So I just raised that with the commissioner, and then the Del Rio question I thought was just as important, but it didn't get quite the focus.
We had a chat about the Goodell question.
No way he doesn't know.
He knew.
Yeah, exactly.
They auctioned off the chair or whatever, and Portnoy won the auction for charity, and they wouldn't allow that to go through.
Yeah.
He won it for like $250,000, so he absolutely knew.
Yeah, I probably should have pushed him a little more and followed up, but it's tough to do.
On Zoom?
Exactly. The Democrats have got this remote hearing baloney, and you can't, when you're going to cross-examine a witness, you need the witness in front of you to do it, and it's just harder to do. Plus, I did want to ask about what the Redskins or the Guardians, not the Guardians, the Commanders, yeah, the Guardians or the Indians, what the Redskins were doing with this fine on Jack Del Rio as well. So
is anything happening in regards to that hearing moving forward so that Snyder's not showing?
Yeah, he's out of the country. He was out of the country at that time. I think he's in France, then. But there's not been really any follow-up that any other hearing since then.
What brings you to Nashville?
We're here to visit with the music industry, and we come to Nashville a lot. We got frankly, a lot of great supporters, conservative supporters here in this great town. And as you guys know, this town is a happening place. I mean, it is just.
Have you been out here in this area?
Oh, we've been all over. It's been amazing. Plus, we're going to the Grand Ole Opry tonight. Polly and I, we've never been there, so we're really looking forward to that. But we got some great friends in this town and great supporters of conservatives in the Congress.
Well, the music industry is hopping. You guys have some say over that line of work as well, for sure.
Yep.
Thank you for the visit and the perspective. If we move forward on NIL and they're wanting the federal legislation here, we don't snap our fingers with that, right? This takes a while.
No, you got to do this right. I mean, obviously we know, but we're in the midst of a huge change in collegiate athletics and amateur athletics. I think you got to do this right. It probably could happen in the Education and Labor Committee, Energy and Commerce Committee possibly as well. And then because of the constitutional issues and maybe I guess maybe potentially even some other issues that it could be some in our committee as well, the Judiciary Committee.
And total hypothetical, you think it's more likely that we could see a group of states that make up a conference come together in some type of agreement for legislation?
I don't know because you're going to get, let's say you're going to get Indiana and let's say USC and UCLA are in the Big Ten. You're going to Indiana and California agree. I mean, California is way different than the rest of the country, and I think in so many negative ways, frankly, because of the left-wing policies there. So I don't know if that's going to fly. Again, I guess maybe that underscores why it may have to be some activity from the federal government.
I think eventually that we will see some type of regulation because I think the players, what I think is coming are promises with this, no one in particular in mind, but the promises that are being made at the high school level when you go may not actually happen once you show up. I'm not blaming any university here. I'm thinking just in big picture. And if I'm a player, I want some regulation because it's going to guarantee certain things if I agree to it. So I think the players will also be asking for it as much as the universities or the conferences will. And at some point, there has to be a middle ground where people are willing to go to bat and come together bipartisan and figure out a solution for where we're headed with it.
Yeah, you think there's going to have to be something because just think of the amount of money involved too. It's like I've heard we had a wrestler who was a national champ for Rutgers transfer to Michigan. Michigan thought they were going to be able to beat Penn State, and this year's they beat him in the Big Ten, didn't beat him in the national tournament. But the amount of money he got as a wrestler was unbelievable. Now imagine the quarterback, what they're getting. So it's like the quantities we're talking about are so big that we're going to have to figure this out. But let's hope it's sooner rather than later.
Congressman Jim Jordan has been our guest here in the 6th and Peabody Studios. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
We appreciate the
visit.
Appreciate
your good work.
Enjoy the rest of your time in Nashville.
Right. Take care.
We get you to the weekend by previewing what's on tap this weekend. That's next on OutKick 360. Been a fun week. OutKick 360. Wrapping up the week here across the OutKick network. The NFL has confirmed, Paul, that, and I know this goes back from a previous discussion where we debated this and we discussed it, not debated. They are going to put games on their app. They're going to offer that streaming service for their app.
A full streaming
NFL
service or what? I mean, my understanding at the beginning was they're going to put games on their app, the same game that you could watch in your local market on a Sunday afternoon, which to me is not some big get.
Well, the streaming service within the app, to me, tells us they're going to show games there. I don't.
Yeah, I get that, but my question is which games? If it's the same exact thing I can watch at home, that's not much of a get for me.
Well, unless
all that does is give me a little mobility, and I'm not so sure I can't watch the CBS game at home on my phone through my cable operator.
Right, but I think what they're saying, they're viewing it as they're not just leaning into streaming, they're diving headfirst into the media rights deals with them, like Amazon with Thursday Night Football, $1 billion is what they're going to be paying with Amazon Prime. Peacock and ESPN Plus are fighting for the NFL Sunday Ticket. You have Paramount Plus that can get involved, and they're looking at going, well, we can charge the same thing, and we can show our product there. I don't know how they negotiate
Well, I don't know how.
It's going to be $5 a month.
You've got an Amazon deal already. Is Amazon going to say, sure, you go ahead and show it on your $5 a month thing? That would be a screw to Amazon unless you have a loophole for it in the Amazon deal already.
So the league's chief media and business operator, Brian Rolap, confirmed in a column with Sports Illustrated. Here's his quote. NFL Plus, which is their app, NFL Plus, will provide fans access to live local and national NFL games on mobile devices, live out-of-market preseason games across all devices.
Throw that away.
And
I don't give a damn about a preseason.
Local and national audio for every game.
Go back to the TV stuff and leave out the preseason.
This is when I hear that, they also say they're going to have NFL Network and shows on demand.
All right, but live, local.
NFL Films Archives. Live, local, and national NFL games on mobile devices.
All right. So I've got all that already.
Yeah, but they're telling you can get it for $5 a month instead of whatever we're paying for NFL Sunday Ticket.
Yeah, but I've got it without NFL Sunday Ticket. Live, local, that means the games that you have already in your market on your TV. So all this is doing is giving you mobility if you're leaving your house during the local
but they're
windows.
also giving you national NFL games on mobile devices. So
well, the national NFL games are Sunday Night Football, which you've already got, Monday Night Football, which you've already got. I can't imagine Amazon's giving it to them, but maybe that. But all games that you've already got. It's not giving you anything you don't already have.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're going to
So why
create,
am I paying $5?
Well,
a month.
They're going to give you a reason to pay $5 a month. You know?
I'm not hearing it there.
I mean, you're paying how much a month for Netflix, and where's their new content coming out for what you want to watch?
Well, they're losing a lot of subscribers because they're not producing enough new content. But this doesn't have any new content that I want. I've got NFL Network already.
Well, you know,
I don't watch NFL films.
I view things years in advance on what they're setting up because the rich become wealthy and the wealthy stay wealthy off of projecting where things are going.
Well, when it gets there, I might buy it, but it's not there at the beginning.
But you can't. But I'm looking at this going, what happens to DirecTV? I'm a DirecTV subscriber, so I view this as the live sports element, which is, I mean, they're out of the business of NFL Sunday Ticket. You had to have DirecTV to get it. Now, Red Zone's a different thing. They had a special Red Zone for different providers, Comcast, Xfinity, and DirecTV. But the NFL Sunday Ticket was through DirecTV only. Now that's up for bid, and that's a big win for the fans because you don't have to go and pay. I mean, I don't know what we're paying over $200 a month for the DirecTV. So, you know, Claire likes to DVR shows, with that, I have access to the games if I want them now, even though in the past I wasn't wanting them.
By the way, I think you can make a phone call and get that for free this year. I've got some friends who talked to DirecTV about leaving, and they said, we'll give you Sunday ticket for free
there
this
we go.
year.
There to the masses is Paul granting you access.
I'd make the phone call.
They're going to have a waiting list the same way Springsteen does right now with the phone call you just recommended. But the multicast stuff is where I think they can go with it. That's what.
Give me multicast. That would intrigue me.
They can provide their own watch along, for lack of a way to put this. I mean, they think about the guys they employ: Michael Irvin, Deion Sanders. The guys that they have access to, where you can throw an exclusive thing up on NFL Plus. I'm not saying I'm doing this, but you're asking for exclusive content. I think that's kind of the route you can go because they're already allowing the other networks to do it. The networks are already building other ways for you to watch their product through the Manning Cast on ESPN, Nickelodeon. They're doing their own broadcast for 2 or 3 games a year now, including one playoff game. You've got the analytics game, the analytics between the lines cast that they offer on like ESPN News or whatever it is. So there's so many different options now, and the NFL is just saying, hey, if we can get 60,000 people to give us $5 a month, why not launch an app and get $5 a month?
Well, they'll do better than that. Some people will just buy it because it's an NFL thing, sight unseen, because they're the NFL, and that's how powerful they are. Some other more discerning people like you and I will wait until proof of concept is there with newness. And that's what I'll wait for, until you're showing me something on there that I am not already paying for somewhere else. I'm not double dipping on it.
Coming up on Monday, Chad's going to be back with us. We teased earlier in the week, we received video of him on horseback, and it makes me laugh. Just did I show you the grainy video?
You didn't. You told me about it. I feel like I've seen it in your word pictures.
Yeah, that word picture briefly. It looks like Christ riding the donkey in with the
Palm
leaves.
Sunday.
Palm Sunday. It looks like, because Chad's legs are nearly dragging the ground because the horse looks so small. Although it was too large to be a pony, so I'm interested to find out what horse this was. And Chad's reaction to it. I heard the allergies were not kind to him.
It was a horse.
Yeah, horse, yes. A horse.
A honey.
So honey. We will chat with Chad about that. He's back with us on Monday. Also, Riddle from the WWE is on the show. SummerSlam is in town next week at Nissan Stadium here in Nashville, so we'll have some guests there. We will also chat with Cole Kubelik and recap all things SEC. We'll tie a bow around what was the week of coverage. Our crew did a great job. Trey Wallace and Glenn Gilbo have you covered. Thanks to Davey Hudson for his great work. The entire crew. Rejoin us on Monday for OutKick 360.
Read the sign. Don't block the box, and kindly lock your locks.